Hey guys, this is Camfrey15 and I'm back at it with another video for you guys. And I'm back with another fairy tale arc review for you guys. And we are here with the next big arc, or the arc that actually, I guess you can say, covers an entire season of fairy tale. But essentially, this is also the first arc where things don't primarily, it has a bigger landscaping of effects, causes, and effects than the first couple of arcs, which really were just strictly contained for fairy tale character purposes. Here it's for much more of a grander scale type of thing, and we are today talking about the Oracion Seis arc, which I think is a pretty good arc. Now, it's not one of my go-to arcs, but I still think as an arc on its own, I think it's pretty solid. Yes, there are some issues here and there, especially with the fight with Natsu versus Zero. But yeah, I enjoy this arc, and it was a blast rewatching this arc over again. The one thing I will aback with this arc is it does have some pretty cool. It does have some pretty cool moments, along with some very heartfelt, emotional moments in this arc, especially towards the end of this arc that will just leave your heart in shambles or leave you in a mess of tears. Anyways, like I said, this arc kind of is the first arc that really focuses on the grand scale of things outside of really purely the fairy tale guild on its own. Like, this has ramifications for, like, I guess you can say things that happen. Well, I guess characters or events that happen in the future and stuff like that. Or what I mean by that is it's a more grand scale thing in terms of the world building for fairy tale. But let's get into it. So the Oracion Seis arc covers manga chapters 131 to 165, while it covers anime episodes 52 to episode 69. No homo there. Anyways, some pretty important characters are Wendy Marvell, Brain, Zero, Cobra, Angel, Midnight Racer, Jura, Hot Eye, obviously the other Lamian scale members that show up, and then even the Blue Pegasus guild members who make their first appearance. Now, the arcs essentially starts off with Ulter discussing the movement of the Oracion Seis and the fact that we find out, well, she's in a dark guild, and two, that we see that she's still alive from obviously the whole attack on the Magic Council with Jalal. We find out she's in the guild named Grimoire Hearts, and their master is called Masters Hades. And we also do find out, I think we find out in the scene that she was the one that actually controlled Jalal to make him think, or she made him think that she was Zareth. But yeah, anyways, this is when we cut over to Fairy Tale, and essentially Fairy Tale is getting the rundown of the Dark Guild, I guess you can say inner circle, or I guess you can say the whole Dark Guild network, which we see that there are three guilds leading this Dark Guild network, which are in this alliance called the Barham Alliance, which essentially consists of guilds, which are obviously the one guild in this arc, Oracion Seis, Grimoire Hearts, and Tartaros, which I think is, for a fairy tale watcher, when you go back and rewatch this, it is pretty interesting to make a mention of the fact that they referenced Tartaros and Grimoire Hearts before they got their own individual representation arcs, especially Tartaros, because we know how crazy good Tartaros is. But it is still pretty interesting to see that we get references to those guilds literally, I guess you can say, I would say still regardless, early on in the story, especially in Tartaros's case. We just don't know the inner workings about those two guilds at the time. But essentially how this Dark Guild network works out is the fact that these smaller dark guilds essentially work for the three guilds in the Barham Alliance, and they do their bidding. So then the Barum Alliance guilds can be able to eventually execute what their end goal is. And essentially, they give these smaller guilds the pay job and stuff like that. Juvia makes a mention that, what is it? Phantom Lord was under the Oracion Seis' little network, but never really were told to go say attack Fairy Tail. We just did what they were asking us to do, and that's kind of it. So the thing is, Master Makarov comes in and tells Fairy Tail, well, I'm going to send Natsu, Lucy, Gray, and Urza to go do a job for me. And that's the thing about stopping the Oracion Seis. The thing is, you're going to be you're going to be in a collaboration with other guilds, with the other guilds being Lamia Scale, Kate Shelter, and Blue Pegasus leading the helm. So they're in a joint operation to stop the Oracion Seis to achieve what they want. Now, when Fairy Tail eventually gets to the meetup spot, they meet the Blue Pegasus. They meet everybody there. The Blue Pegasus wizards are Hibiki, Eve, Ren, and Ichia, who seems, in Ichia's case, to know Urza and give her the creeps because, well, he's just so manly, if you know what I mean. But obviously, the biggest wizard out of them that gets featured the most is definitely Ichia. I do like his character, even though he does come across as a weirdo. But he's just kind of that lovable, funny, comedic character that's also weird at the same time that you get a good old, laugh at. The Lamia Scale wizards we see here are the return of Leon and Sherry, obviously making their reappearances from the Galuna Island arc, and we get one of the 10 wizard saints revealed here, and that is Jura, who's within their ranks. And I like Jura. He doesn't get featured as much later in the series. Like, I would say this is probably the biggest arc we really see the most out of him, or he's featured, I guess, other than the Grand Magic Games arc. But even then, we see little of Jura there. But this is where he's kind of featured the most, and we do see how strong he is in this arc and stuff like that. But yeah, and then the last guild is the Kate Shelter Guild, which dons the wizard, the only one wizard they decided to bring along, Wendy Marvell, and her cat buddy, just like Natsu, Carla. Now, in the sub, they call her Charley or something like that for representative ways, and even the English dub, they say it. I'm going to keep to calling her Carla because it actually sounds like a girl name, and it's a lot more easier to pronounce than the other way you pronounce it. It's kind of like Zoro's manga name. In the manga, he's called Zolo, but in reality, his real name is Zoro. But whatever. Now since I watched the English dub, the only important voice actor I got, which is Wendy Marvell's voice actor, which her voice actor is Brittany Karbowski, which in almost every anime I watch, she's in it. It doesn't matter what she's in. I watch it, I hear her voice, I'm like, oh, Brittany Karbowski. It's great to hear her voice again. And it feels like I can never escape Brittany Karbowski's, voice. But some other roles other than Wendy Marvell, which I think Wendy is probably her biggest, most important role. Another pretty big, important role is the fact that she voice acts Makoto Mizuka from a certain scientific railgun. She's in other animes here and there and stuff like that. And yeah, but I would say Wendy Marvell and Makoto Mizuka are probably two of her biggest roles. Mostly because Wendy Marvell's a main character, kind of / side character, but Makoto Mizuka's a full-out main character, especially in her representative series of Railgun. But I like her voice. I think she's great, and stuff like that. But yeah. Now, anyways, after all the guilds meet up and everything, Ichia then explains the Oracion Seis that and their plan and what their plan is, and the fact that they're looking for a powerful magic called Nirvana, and they want complete control of it because essentially they can annihilate the entire world if they want to. Now, the thing about Oracion Seis compared to other guilds is the fact that the Oracion Seis, well, in their name, has 6 freaking wizards. And just because they have 6 wizards doesn't mean they're weak at all. They're actually all pretty damn strong, and it makes sense to why there was a joint operation amongst these 4 guilds to try to take these guys out. Now, the wizards' names are Cobra, Angel, Brain, Midnight Racer, and Hot Eye. Now, obviously, again, making the mention of the fact that these guys are no pushovers. When Fairy Tail and the other guilds try to take them out when they come across them, they all easily get dominated and they get their asses handed to them within seconds of the arc. You have Urza getting poisoned by Cobra. You have everybody else getting knocked out. Jura and Ichiya get taken out before they even meet the full guild because thanks to Angel, she used her spirit Gemini to make a fake Ichiya to catch Jura off by surprise and everything. Essentially, because of them getting their butts kicked, as one, we see that they take down Christina too, as well as they capture Wendy, looking for Wendy to essentially revive a person we know of and stuff like that. So yeah. Anyways, as they regroup from their whole thing, since Urza is poisoned, they need to essentially find a way to do it. Now, Urza was willing to cut off her own damn arm to do it, but obviously Gray is like, no, we are not allowing you to do that. Urza eventually passes out, and that's when Carla speaks up saying, if we only had Wendy, she could heal Urza. So the plan now is to not only find the Oracion Seis, but also retrieve Wendy so they can take her back to Urza to heal Urza and stuff like that. Now, this is when some of the Alliance members, they split up and they run into some other smaller dark guilds that are working with the Oracion Seis. They get taken out easily, I guess other than Ichiya, because he got split up and he got lost from Eve and Ren. So he gets taken captive. We see Aragorn make a reappearance saying that he's working for the Oracion Seis, but Natsu fights him and he essentially beats him pretty damn easily and stuff like that. So yeah, it was cool to see Aragorn again, but he kind of gets honestly foddered here and stuff like that. So he was honestly a jobber, essentially. Now, in the Wendy situation, the reason why Brain took in Wendy was to heal Jalal, who is still alive, and is just in a comatose state with all the ether nano that was around him and stuff like that. Also, they're also making him revive him so he can find Nirvana and activate it. Now, we see that Wendy apparently knows who Jalal is and has an apparent history with her or with him and stuff like that, which we find out later, which we'll talk about later in this arc review. Eventually, what happens is Grand now eventually finds where Wendy's at, but it's already too late because Wendy has already revived Jalal and everything. Racer, before I talk about the fights going on here, essentially Jalal kind of goes on his own. He attacks Natsu, he attacks Brain, and that's kind of it. So Natsu eventually takes them and tries to get them back to Urza while Gray is starting his fight with Racer and stuff like that. So what happens is after Brain reoccurs, he tells Cobra to follow Jalal so they can know where Nirvana's location is at. So yeah, now this is when this kind of starts this whole arc in terms of just us getting continuous battles from back to back to back to back to back. So the first battle in this arc is Racer versus Gray and Leon. And essentially, the fight is just a high-octane type of freaking action fight where you see I guess, very fast characters fighting and stuff like that. So, yeah, now, during the fight, when Leon joins the fray, he eventually finds out Leon's weakness. And essentially, Leon finds out Racer's weakness. And essentially, he finds out that Racer's magic doesn't enhance his movement speed, but instead, what Racer does is he slows the perception of time to make it look like he's moving faster than the speed of sound, essentially like he's Sonic the Hedgehog or something. But after getting Racer out of this one location where his magic area isn't at, which he has to be in a designated area to be at, it gives Gray enough time to be able to fire an ice arrow and takes Racer down and stuff like that. Now, we see throughout all the members for the Oracion Seis members of the fact that they all have these prayers of what they wanted to do. And we all find out that the Oracion Seis members all used to be at the Tower of Heaven back then, and they all used to be where Urza was at and stuff like that. And we find out that Racer's speed was the fact that he wanted to be so fast that nobody could see him, essentially. So that's the one thing. So after they defeat Racer, it looks like all is free, but then Racer gets back up, trying to look like he's going to try to take himself out along with Gray, Sherry, and Leon. But Leon gets the quick thinking to essentially what it looks like to sacrifice his life. We later see on in the arc that he actually is still alive, but because of this makes Sherry look oddly evil in a way and stuff like that. Now, when Nelson brings Wendy back to Urza, Urza's healed. They make a reference about Jalal, and the moment Natsu goes off the chase after Jalal or find Jalal, Urza's already gone too. But the only thing is Natsu falls for a trap. But Natsu falls for a trap made by Gray, who really isn't Gray. He's a fake Gray and stuff like that. But this is when we get the fight to obviously Lucy and Angel. And this is a pretty interesting fight here because this is one of the fights, by the end of this fight, has a very emotional moment at the end. And this fight was kind of all bags of emotion. Essentially in this fight, Lucy's trying to fight Angel using her Celestial Spirit's keys, but Angel's a Celestial Spirit wizard herself, and essentially everything Lucy puts out, she is a counter for. For example, Lucy brings out Sagittarius, but because Gemini's already transformed into Lucy, Gemini can essentially, with the fact that she technically is Lucy in a way and has Lucy's voice, can make Sagittarius attack, our allies, our friends, and stuff like that, our heroes, I guess you can say. So essentially, Lucy calls back Sagittarius. Next, she brings out Aquarius, but essentially, Angel counters this by bringing out Aquarius's boyfriend, Scorpio. And then Lucy goes out to Loki, and then we get the revealing here that Angel has Ares keys, which is the gate of the Ram, and we find out here that Angel is the person responsible for taking the life of Karen. And essentially, the thing with Angel is she's no better than Karen too. She treats her spirits like they're honestly tools, if not worse, and stuff like that. And the thing is, throughout speaking about Hibiki, he was about to, I guess you can say, turn evil. And essentially what I mean by that is, since in the Jalal side of thing, Jalal activates Nirvana. And because of this, essentially now with Nirvana activated, essentially there's a whole yin and yang thing. So essentially we see earlier, before all these things happen, Hibiki had to knock out Wendy because she was having these very negative thoughts. And essentially the thing is, any negative thought or any, thought of regret or, I guess, evil in your heart from a good person will change you over to the dark side and change you bad. But the same can be applied. If you're bad, you can change good, which is what happened to Hot Eye when he was fighting Jura, because he was also grubby about money and everything. He really wasn't he changed over to the good side. No, Hot Eye wasn't really a bad guy. He just wanted money so he could find his long lost brother, who is later revealed by the end of this arc to be Wally Buchanan, and stuff like that. But Hibiki has to make himself snap back in reality and thinking like, I can't do this because otherwise I'm gonna turn evil. and stuff like that. So also, it seems like Hibiki had some sort of, I'm guessing, more romantic relationship with Karen. I'm guessing that's the thing because he showed a lot of emotion to Karen being revealed when Karen died. So that's the thing. But essentially, what happens is Angel uses a dirty tactic to both get rid of not only Loki but also Ares as well. And essentially, at this point, Lucy has no more spirits to use, and she's essentially out of magic power. And when it looks like Gemini is going to take out the finishing blow, because Gemini is, or transformed to Lucy, Gemini can feel the same feelings that Lucy's feeling. And the reason why Gemini doesn't go through with attacking or killing Lucy is because Gemini essentially feels the love that Lucy has for celestial spirits, which we know from way back in the Loki arc. And I still think this is one of the most heartwarming moments here that, and you see it in what Gemini's saying. Gemini's like, I hear a voice saying, like, she really does care about us, like she loves us, and stuff like that. And that touches Gemini and stuff like that. And I think it was a heartwarming moment there because it goes again. This further hits the point that it shows that Lucy, at the end of the day, really does love celestial spirits, and she's different than most celestial spirits we've already been seeing in the past, where they seem to only care about using them for their own end goals, like a Karen or a Angel. And because of this makes, obviously, this gets freaking the upper hand on Lucy, because guess what? Now Angel can't really take her down. But we think Hibiki looks evil, but in reality, Hibiki uses his archive magic to essentially upgrade Lucy's mind to using this ultimate spell she eventually develops later on in the series called Aranometria and defeats Angel. And Angel's prayer is the fact that she wants to recall how she wants to fly into the sky like an angel, essentially. So yeah. Now we call over to Wendy and Carla. They're talking about, or Carla asks a question to Wendy, how does she know Jalal? And we find out that when Wendy was younger and she was all alone after the time Grandina, her dragon, left her, we see that Jalal, or apparently somebody who is Jalal, found her, and essentially they went on a journey together. And it got to a point where they had to split off because Jalal said there was something dangerous that Wendy couldn't handle. And that's when, obviously, she was dropped off at the Kate Shelter Guild and stuff like that. Now, in terms of speaking about Jalal, Urza sees Jalal for the first time in quite a while since the Tower of Heaven arc and stuff like that. And Urza tells him, like, I'm the person you're looking for. I'm Urza. And essentially, she's telling him, like, you need to atone for all the actions, all your sins you've done in the past. But the interesting thing about Jalal is, because of all the ether nano stuff, and the incident that happened, he essentially lost all his memories and he can't remember anything from the past and stuff like that. So eventually Cobra comes up and he asks him, then how the hell did you know where Nirvana was? And essentially Jalal just says, well, there was a voice in my head telling me that I had to come here and that Nirvana needed to be activated and stuff like that. And essentially the thing is, it's later revealed that Jalal puts a magic circle of destruction to try to destroy Nirvana, including himself. But Urza is trying not to let that happen because Urza's telling him that you can't die without trying to atone and facing your sins for what you did in the past to try to, I guess, rectify what you did in the past and everything, which honestly is kind of a nice little thing that makes sense. Like, why rather die instead of just doing that? Now, what happens is, as I was saying, this is happening. Brain eventually shows up, and eventually you find out Brain taught Jalal the magic he knew from when he was possessed, thanks to Ultir and stuff like that, and essentially easily cancels out the destruction spell. Brain eventually activates Nirvana, and all the characters that are still, I guess you can say, conscious to this point are essentially racing up to Nirvana. And, essentially Urza tells Jalal, like, hey, it's time to work together because guess what? You can't give up hope yet. when things get rough, because you have to live to fight for your future instead of just sit idly by and die and stuff like that. Which, yeah, so that's the thing. Now we cut over. Natsu tries to stop Brain, but eventually Cobra gets in his way, and essentially this is when we get the fight between Natsu versus Cobra, which I think is a pretty cool fight. Honestly, I like this fight, even though it's completely one-sided. One-sided, and essentially the thing about Cobra is that essentially he can essentially hear the movements of people, whoever he goes up against, and damn near has to take Natsu to go, and then and essentially Natsu would have to essentially go Ultra Instinct to probably even defeat him. But the way Natsu defeats him is he essentially screams so loud, like as if he was the dragon himself, and literally just crushes Cobra's eardrums. So what happens next up is, because of this, Brain sees a whole weakness in Cobra and the fact that he lost to essentially an inferior opponent. And essentially Brain takes out Cobra, and he's willing to have Natsu join his side. But then that's when Lucy, Gray, and Jura all show up. Jura takes on Brain and easily, utterly destroys him and defeats him and stuff like that. And essentially the last known Oracion Seis member still active is really Hot Eye and Midnight, but Midnight actually takes out Hot Eye, and essentially you get to the point where Jalal and Urza fight Midnight. So they fight Midnight, and the thing is, Midnight is giving them some trouble because Midnight has reflector magic and stuff like that. Eventually, Urza, I guess you can say, requips into, as I'm saying, as I'm finding, she equips into a robe of Yuan armor, which essentially is just like the one cloth armor she has we've seen earlier, but she has a spear with this one, so it looks pretty cool and stuff like that. So yeah, but we actually do find out the reasoning behind why Oracion Seis is going to use Nirvana and stuff like that. We find out that Nirvana is going on its way to target Kate's shelter, and essentially we find out it's because it's the members of the Kate Shelter Guild are descendants of the Nervit, the people who created Nirvana, and that means they're the only ones to seal Nirvana or resealing it and stuff like that. But anyways, going back to the Urza versus Jalal fight, essentially Midnight tries to use illusions to throw Urza off her game, but it doesn't work because of Urza's fake eye, and she's able to see through the illusions and stuff like that. Also, she points out the weakness in Midnight is the fact that Midnight only can use his reflector magic in one select area. Other than that, he can't do much of anything, so he leaves himself essentially wide open. But eventually, Urza overcomes his illusions, defeats him, and that's the last of the Oracion Seis members and stuff like that. But catch is, because all the Oracion Seis members are down, you see progressively through the arc, the tattoos on Brain start to disintegrate and start to go away. And essentially, the reason why is because his staff starts talking and says, "This, what you did was bad." Essentially, we find out that Brain has an alter ego called Master Zero, who is the true master of the Oracion Seis. And essentially, he was unlocked because, guess what? All the members of the Oracion Seis all had body link magic towards him, and stuff like that. I also forgot to mention, Cobra's and Midnight's prayers. Well, for Cobra was finding that one true friend he needs in his life, and then for Midnight, essentially, actually, I forgot what Midnight's purpose was, but essentially, I think it was like to find somewhere to sleep, essentially for a long period of time and not be disturbed or something like that. But anyways, going back to what I was saying, Zero is now awakened, and the thing is, before this even happens, Jura actually got taken out earlier because they fall for a trap from Brain trying to speak as Hot Eye and stuff like that. And essentially, it looks like he sacrifices his life for the Fairy Tail members to live on. But the thing is, with Zero is, Zero confronts Natsu, Lucy, Happy, and Gray, and easily just utterly dismantles them and destroys them. And essentially, listen, Zero isn't, I guess, the best antagonist. He's kind of your generic antagonist who's only about destruction and I want to take over the world and destroy everything. So there's really nothing special going on with Zero, to be honest. So yeah. But anyways, when it looks like Kate Shilter is going to be destroyed by Nirvana's cannon, thanks to Christina, thanks to some of the wizards from Blue Pegasus and Lamius Guild trying to keep it afloat with whatever magic power they have left, they I guess destroy, or they guess change the trajectory of Nirvana and stuff like that. So this is when Hibiki gets in contact with everybody who is still within on Nirvana consciously, saying that there are 6 different lacrima that essentially our characters have to destroy. And by destroying that, they can essentially stop Nirvana from activating and be able to essentially destroy it for good. The only case is they need 6 wizards, and really at this point in time, they only have 3 wizards, which is Jalal, Urza, and Isha. Now, Wendy was there, but she didn't have no belief in her own magic power at the time, so that's why they said 3. But in a very emotional, nice moment, you get a pretty cool, badass moment, which is like one of the best moments in the series, is when Natsu, Lucy, and Gray, damn near on reserves and exhausted and still pretty hurt badly from their beating from Brain, all get up to try to contribute and stuff like that. So they go to all the different lacrimas. Natsu goes to the lacrima where Brain's at because he can smell Brain and stuff like that. So they get into a fight, and it isn't until, and essentially for this part of the fight, which is the final fight on the Oracion Seis arc, you have it to where Zero is absolutely dominating Natsu. That is until Jalal, thanks to Urza kind of saying Natsu's name, triggers something in Jalal, make him remember Natsu and make him remember what gets Natsu strength. And essentially, the thing is, he gives Natsu the Flames of Rebuke, which gives him a power boost. I understand why people would be like, this is kind of a weird power boost or whatever. So yeah, he gets a power boost. He activates his Dragon Force for the 2nd time in the series again. And it starts to become more of an even fight against Zero. Now, Zero does this one move called Genesis Zero that puts Natsu in this different dimension. But it was thanks to, I guess, Igniel's, words or influence. Essentially, he tells Natsu, don't doubt yourself because you can overcome anything and stuff like that. And that's how, and Natsu essentially defeats Zero by essentially slamming him into the lacrima, as well as everybody else, destroys their lacrima. Nirvana's destroyed, but the arc isn't finished yet, because when everybody reunites with each other, we see the new Reform Magic Council essentially come, led by Lahar, taking Hadai and Jalal. And the reasoning behind this is, well, they did their crimes. Now, Hadai is willingly to atone for his sins and go just obviously freely, knowing that eventually he can get out and go find his brother. That's when eventually Urza tells him, like, I know your brother Wally and stuff like that. But as for Jalal, essentially, he could be put into jail for life for what he did. And because of this, it looks like Urza is going to attack to try to stop the Magic Council from taking him. But then that's when we see the other members of the Alliance try to stop the Magic Council. But it isn't until Urza essentially realizes that even though I want to spend time with Jalal, I can't, because he has to do all these things. He has to do the time and stuff like that. So she lets him go, even though it's a very emotional scene. And before Jalal goes into the, prison vehicle, he tells Urza that he remembers her, especially because the color of her hair. And we see a flashback how he gave her the name Urza Scarlet, her last name Scarlet, because of the color of her hair, which gets Urza to be very emotional. And you have a very emotional moment where you just have her essentially at the sunrise, just emotionally crying, which you see obviously just the character of Urza, and how sad it is, the fact that she can't, I guess you can say, have things her way, which is having her best friend back in her life, the person she cares about. which she has all those personalities and those characters, but at the same time, even though we all know Urza to be a very stoic character, she does have her moments where she does show that weakness, those emotional tendencies of her and everything. Now, that's one emotional moment, which, again, when I first saw that scene, it got me to almost damn near cry and tear up. The next emotional heartstringer is the next day when it looks like we're going to be getting a party with the Kate Childer Guild. This is when we're revealed by the Kate Childer Master the fact that they're not descendants of the Nervit. They actually are the Nervit, and he was one of the last survivors from 400 years ago. And the fact is, they wanted to use Nirvana to end all the wars in the world. The only problem is because of the people being around Nirvana on the island, obviously on this, city in the city, it got people to get the thoughts of very bloodthirsty, evil thoughts, and essentially because of it, they wiped out each other and stuff like that. So obviously, his name was Robal, manages to escape all this and be a survivor. And essentially, he comes across, and after Jalal dropped off Wendy at his guild, or at where he was at, that's when he created the Kate Childer Guild using thought projections, giving everybody in the Kate Childer Guild their own personalities as if he remembered them from when they were in that city and stuff like that. And because of this, essentially it gives he essentially says his goodbyes, telling Wendy, there's no need to have imaginary friends anymore when now you have real friends. And he disappears. Wendy's in an emotional state, and Urza can essentially, after everything she went through, can essentially feel what Wendy's feeling in terms of the loss of loved ones and stuff like that. And essentially that's when she tells Wendy, why don't you come with us and you join the guild Fairy Tale, which is what happens. And that's kind of where the arc ends. And that's where I'm going to end this video off. So yeah, the Oracion Seis arc, I think, is a pretty good arc, although the final battle against Zero isn't the best in terms of what the hell happened in that fight. So I will give people the benefit of the doubt of saying the argument of Nasu kind of got, I guess you would call it BS power up out of nowhere and stuff like that. So yeah, but regardless, this arc had its good moments, and it was very emotional by the end. To only see Urza lose her friend again when she thought she had him, and then Wendy, finding out that, well, guess what? They were all just imaginary people in front of me, which was very sad, stuff like that. But at the end of the day, this arc was really good. We got some pretty nice moments, and we met some new characters. And yeah, so that's kind of it for now. And I'm going to get over. So next time, I'm not talking about the anime only arc, the Daphne arc. Lord have mercy. Fuck that stuff. Next time, we're not going to be talking about that arc. We're going to be talking about the Daedalus arc, which is one of my favorite arcs in the franchise. So other than that, guys, I'm going to get out of here. Hopefully, you guys have a great rest of your day or night or whenever you're checking out this video. Until then, guys, hit that subscribe button to get more fairy tale content, as well as hit that bell icon to get anything that I upload to the channel on the spot. Anyways, I'm going to get out of here. Hopefully, you guys have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you guys for the next fairy tale arc review for the Daedalus arc. Till then, guys, take care. Peace.